Welcome to this strategy-rich edition of The One Thing podcast, hosted by Ron Sheets. On each episode, Ron introduces you to the amazingly successful entrepreneurs from his Rolodex who reveal the simple truths behind the one marketing strategy they rely on to produce extraordinary results. Each episode is guaranteed to expose you to a proven approach for producing high-value and highly profitable business. Welcome to this episode of The One Thing podcast.
As you see on the screen, we have with us Jill Wolforth, which I was telling everybody about, and I'm really excited. I've been talking to Jill and Ron about getting to the mastermind in person for a couple of years, and the challenge has always been schedule, because their height of their season starts in the spring and goes into the fall, and we pretty much hit early spring in the summer and into the late fall. So this is in response to that. I've asked Jill to join us here. But before we jump into that, I want to cover a little bit of mastermind group business. One of the things that I want to touch is make sure that everybody got this card. This one says Pete here. Fortunately, Pete Lillo was nice enough to give me his and telling me that now that he doesn't have his, he won't know the dates. But I hope you got this card, and it was about the update on the dates for the meeting. Originally, the meeting was scheduled for the 24th and 25th of October. I had to move it to the 25th and 26th because of all dates. Dan Kennedy has two projects that he needed me for, and he did those 3 months in advance of all the dates he had to pick. But that's fine. He is Dan Kennedy. And so I'm hoping you got this and you made the date changes in your calendar. It is the 25th and 26th of October, which is a Friday and a Saturday. An update because of that and the last minute thing is that we're going to start the meeting earlier on Friday and run it a bit later so that we can get in, because we actually have, in looking at the roster of members who have already confirmed that they're attending, we're going to have our biggest attendance at the live meeting that we've had. So we've got a lot of hot seats to get to. I also wanted to update you, if you have not yet made your room reservations at the Westlake Holiday Inn Express and Suites, do so. The room rate underneath the block booking is good. I've got it extended until October 8th. So you have until October 8th. If I remember, I'll put the link in the chat so you guys can get it, but I'll also follow up with an email to you guys about that. So we have with us Jill Wolforth, who is co-founder of the Texas Baseball Ranch. In addition to mastermind members, I've invited some other people to join in the call because I think that there was going to be a lot of value that Jill was going to be able to deliver. And I just couldn't keep it under a rock and wanted to share it with people because I think it is valuable. So, Jill, thank you, first of all, for joining us, because I know in our communications back and forth, we're always both busy and it's like, oops, did I get to this communication with you? So why don't we start with kind of an introduction of who you are, who Ron is, your husband, and what the Texas Baseball Ranch is, and kind of why it was started.
That's a great question. So it's always fun to look back at this. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. I also want to send out thoughts and prayers to any of your members or others that are on here that may be dealing with the hurricane in Florida right now. As a hurricane location ourselves, we know what that's like. So just sending out thoughts and prayers to anyone that may be dealing with that right now.
Thank you. We actually have members in Florida and in Alabama and in Georgia that I've been in communication with already. So thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. We are so fortunate. Ron and I get to do something that we just absolutely love to do. It's a passion. We've been doing it now for 30 some years. We both have the Texas Baseball Ranch is a facility that trains baseball pitchers and, more importantly, throwers. So we're in the business of helping young men and young women that want to aspire to play at a higher level. And we always say, whatever that level is. For some of them, it's making a high school baseball team. For some, it's going on to college. And then obviously others have professional aspirations. And so we have worked with them for all years and years, helping them to see where they're limited, where they're constrained, and being able to help them on that path. And as everyone knows that has had any background in Dan Kennedy, just because you know your skill set doesn't mean you know business. And so that's what got us started on this path. And a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today is that we realized very quickly in the journey that we did not know the business side, the marketing side. And I tell a funny story that I had ordered magnetic marketing so many years ago. And actually that's when it was carried by, I'm drawing a blank on it, but it was when you got it in cassette tapes. And in Dan Kennedy fashion, he had a sales letter in there that said, next, we'd love to have you join us in Phoenix for one of the marketing events. And I thought, you know what? We need to do this. And I went to Ron and I said, honey, I think we should do this. At the time, it was $2,500, which was significant back in around 1998 is when I think it was. My husband looks at me and says, and Ron, you know him, so you can laugh at this. Other people will be like, oh my gosh, that's kind of harsh. But he looks at me and he says, I think marketing reminds me just of used car salesmen, and I would rather take that $2,500 in cash, put it in the backyard and watch it burn. That would be more entertaining to me than going to this marketing event. Well, needless to say, we went to the marketing event, and he always tells people that was a huge pivot for us, because at that time, Dan told him he needed to write a book. And I don't know how many people have been told that same thing, but I'm going to actually share that today. So we grew the business. We started as just a training facility where we were doing one-on-one lessons. And if anybody knows dance or karate or, music, people come and they get lessons, they get instruction. And there was at one point in our business history that we were doing 800 lessons a month. So you can imagine those are, at that time, they were like half an hour lessons. Kids would come in after school at 3. So you do 3, 3:30, 4, all the way up to the evening. And my husband and I said, at that point, we were trading our hours for dollars. And we're like, we're not going to be able to do this for 30, 40 years of our life. I mean, this is a grind. And so we started into seeing what was our prime times. And instead of having one-on-ones during that time, we went to small groups. And then later on, we said, okay, because small groups, we could make more money during that hour than we could on just a regular one-on-one. Then we started to say, okay, what could we do? At that point, Ron started to get a more became more of a national figure in the training. With okay, now how can we start doing bigger events? So where we could bring in more people at one time. And so that is what it evolved into over those 30 years, is that we now run these 3-day events. We call them our elite pitchers boot camps. They are significantly more expensive than the majority of camps. We actually, even though the title is Elite Pitchers Boot Camp, we talk about it as an experience. And that's what I'm excited today that we're going to be able to share people of what does that look like.
What did you talked about what the business is in that, but what have you found in the evolution what is it that people are actually searching for and buying?
Yep, sure. So you asked the question, what keeps them walking the floor at night, right? And so couple different things. So again, for some kids that I said, like if they're trying to make their high school team, it's this thing about my kid's not going to be able to make this team. He's not going to be able to be on a team with his friends. He's not going to be able to play a high school sport. So it's the fear of missing out, I guess, for a lot of them. Then for others, it's more specifics. From that, then you go, okay, so why would they not make the team? Why would they not get a college scholarship? And the answers to that are things like they don't throw hard enough. So for baseball pitching, it's the term velocity. How hard do they throw? How hard do they throw? How hard do they throw? So that's a big one. Second one is arm health and durability. So just because I can get a guy to throw harder, if he can only throw once a month, he's no good to his team. So it's arm health and durability. Then we get into even some more specific things like, okay, you have a fastball. but can you throw any other pitches? So we call those secondary pitches. Can they throw a curveball? Can they throw a slider? Can they throw anything that's considered an off-speed pitch? And then you also have recovery and durability, being able to do that again and again. It's tied to arm health, but recovery is an issue in of itself. So all of those things are the big picture on what we do. And then one of the things that we do that separates, we assess all those, we evaluate them, and then we create a hyper personalized plan for each individual. So it's that we stay away from cookie cutter, one size fits all, which is very common among a lot of training facilities.
What couple of questions encapsulated here is, so what is your competition? Basically, who are they? Who are you competing against? What's the size of, or the quantity of competition? And what's your market? I mean, what's available to you and to all these other people that are competing for that market?
So it's so funny to look back on that, because when we first started, there was not a lot of competition. Like even in our local area, when we started in the Houston area, Springs area specifically, there were like 3 training facilities. And then even as another one would pop up, usually one of those others would ended up going out of business. And now you'd probably just, not even in the greater Houston, but just in where we are, you'll find 10. Like then you go greater Houston and you're probably looking at 30. And then out Texas, I mean, hundreds. And then United States, there are thousands of people, from the small one guy that's just doing them at the local park to large facilities. Now, for us specifically, for our 3-day events, for that type of instruction, there are fewer. I mean, you're probably talking of when, if people said to you, they would do a comparison, they'd probably name 5 major places, 5 major players that they consider like national types. But the unique thing for us is that most of them still aren't running these large events. They're still trying to do either small groups, or several of those focus on more of the professional athletes, like minor league players. So our niche, the people, and yes, we have our professionals and our major league guys, but for us, it's the high school guy is really the dominant market that we're looking at. So 14, 15, 16-year-olds. We start as young as 12, and we take them all the way up to college for our events. And then one time a year, we do a youth camp for 8 to 12-year-olds, like, because there's still people that are, the little guys are starting and they want to get them started. But that high school athlete is really our core client. And it's actually the parent that is our core client, because they're paying the bill.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned early was in regards to the dollar amount that you're able to command in these elite pitcher boot camps. So just for setting the stage for what we're going to talk about in regards to advertising and marketing, as I understand it, there is a chasm between what others charge and what you charge. So if you could give the audience an idea of what are some of these other camps. So you're saying that there's basically 5 major players. What are some of these other camps charging for their program versus what you're charging, if you're willing to share?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. So let's start with, we are in the price range for our 3-day elite pitchers boot camps. It's $2,995, $2,995. You can now, in some of the marketing you're going to see, we have an early bird and things like that. We're $500 off. So we're looking at $2,495 for those people that take advantage of some of the early. The most that I've seen one person that's tried to copy is when we were down at like 1995, he was copying at 1995, and I don't think he's matched us going up. That's the second highest that I've seen. $999 is another one, and then it's not uncommon for a lot of camps, weekend camps, to be $500, $600.
Okay. And that doesn't count the travel, the lodging, the food.
Exactly.
And so again, just to kind of give a perspective, because one of the things that I talk about that I've learned from Dan is the identifying who your target market is, who is your avatar client. And you've identified it as being the parents of 14 to 16-year-olds. So with that said, I think initially, instinctively, somebody would think, well, geez, Those people don't have a lot of money because they got kids and they're teenagers and they're going to be going off to college and all that kind of stuff. But yet you're able to command $29.95 plus all this other. And as I've watched you guys evolve, it's gone from, dad coming with the son to now, and we've got clients and ranchers' parents who say this, that now mom wants to come. And we actually got one of, if not more, ladies who actually said, we love it so much, we're looking at buying property here. So
and
we
they did.
did they buy
They ended up buying a house. Yeah, because as she said, I've got two boys, and as they're coming through, and they go, "We want to be back every summer, Mom." And she was like, "Yeah." They ended up doing that.
Yeah, and
Hi, this is Brianna.
what I want to
Hello?
point out. Hold on a second here. What I want to point out is that what Jill's going to show you in the advertising and the marketing and the experience is what they've basically created an industry that other people are trying to copy, who are constantly trying to copy, yet they're not able to copy it because they don't understand the nuances of what she's going to go into here today. So when you guys started this thing basically in 1998, what was your marketing? What was your advertising? What was it that you were putting out?
So, and I'll even back up, because when we started, it was about 1995 that we were here in Houston. And then we were doing, at that time, the only advertising we were really doing was these neighborhood community newsletters. And we would do the little square ad that was like, local pitching lessons. And at that time, we were also doing hitting, and we were doing other things. So local lessons, former college coach available to instruct your son or daughter. And, and we got some leads on it. And the great thing is we are still a relationship business. So as we're talking about a lot of things, we do this, but still the long-term successes, we're a relationship business, and people referring to us, that's what let me do. So those people would then start to tell other people about it. So it became a lot of word of mouth. So it was very little advertising. Like, we didn't even know, that was like, well, let's try this, because we didn't even have any idea, anything else of knowing what to do. Then in the Kennedy world is when we started doing other things like making a sales letter. Ron did end up writing the book. We were back in the day, and I know a few of the faces I see in the group, we were back in the day when I was coding for the internet. Like, we put up web pages, right? And so I was learning what red meant, XXYL, whatever all those letters were back in the day. And I mean, I'm telling people today, it's so easy. But so then we started having a web presence and building special requests and special reports. So the majority of our marketing started with lead gen that way, like, get your free copy of whatever, 10 reasons. One of our first ones was 10 things you should know before starting any baseball instruction, and it's like, oh, well, what is that? So then at that point, that's what we sent out and generated our leads that way. That's how we started.
Yeah. And not getting into this to the weeds on the advertising you're doing in that now but in a big general broad sense, how are people finding you aside from the word of mouth? Because the word of mouth is so powerful, not just in your business, but any business. How are people finding you now?
So now, we're in a really unique situation. So when I say to you, we need parents of 14-year-olds that play baseball that are pitchers, it is really difficult to find that list. I mean, we have tried things to find that list. We do have some things I can talk about later if we want to dive into that. But now it still is web search. It is places that we post articles where other people see it they consider those good sources. And so when they get on those good sources and they see Ron's articles, they see the links to be able to reach out to us. We are able to also do some joint venture marketing. We're through those same places where we can finally get in. But a majority of it is the online requests for the DVD package that we're going to talk about that you helped us put together.
And your point about looking for the list for the 14 to 16-year-olds, is difficult. It's difficult in any industry, in any business. I mean, I know I'm going through that conversation now with several of my clients, and we have a very narrow idea of what we're looking for. Yet you get the well, geez, we don't know. I mean, it's still a broad list, and then the lists are terrible. So, regardless of lead generation, you've described how you're getting them and that you're still doing predominantly lead generation. Let's pick it up from there. Once you get a lead,
Yes.
what do you do with it? What does the lead get? How do you nurture it?
This is the fun part. And actually, as I was putting everything together for today, looking at it, I'm like, man, we've done a lot of work with this, right? And so we have a multi-step campaign that we go through. And inside of each of those, and what I'll probably start doing is just throwing some stuff up on the screen here in front of you. And if you want to stop or pause, we can. So we get the lead. They've requested this information package. And so for us, this campaign is based off of, we call it, what makes this boot camp different? So it is, please request your information package on what makes this boot camp different. And it's funny because most people say, yeah, can you please, I'd love to get that. First thing they have to understand, it's coming hard copy. They don't realize that. They think I'm going to just send something back to them via email, like, oh, here's the information. So they find out we're going to mail them this package. So inside of our package, it's all our various marketing materials. So I'm going to throw a few things up just to show you. So we start with, obviously, the big sales letter that's in the, and we're fortunate. Justin Verlander is an athlete that Ron has worked with, so we're able to use his image. People know who that is. He will be a first ballot Hall of Fame guy. And then that all Kennedy style in that. Inside of that, though, there's additional things that we'll send. Let me stick with the sales letter just for a minute. We do 3 mailings for them. We used to do 4. We've still cut it back because we're finding that this has still worked pretty successfully. But there's really not much difference in the sales letter themselves. That's one thing that I wanted to point out. Change the headline. Second one, we add some bullets and some arrows and some different things. And the third one, then we just do a stapled version of what the second one was with a different headline. Warning, you're about to lose your option. So the sales letters, we can make them very similar and not have to spend a lot of extra time. Then we do a couple things like in one of them, I include a letter to a parent from a parent. So someone might be able to use that kind of concept, to a blank from a blank. So it's like, oh, they're like me, right? And that's one thing we really try to do in ours is we market the family environment. Like, people understand when they're with us, oh, we feel like this is a place we want to be. We've had several people say to us, oh, we tried those other places. It just didn't have a good vibe. Right. It's just, so it is still the relationship. So that's one. Another one that we do, another sheet that's inserted in one of them. This says a look at Ron Wolforth, the man and the coach. So they get to feeling a little bit more about what is he like as a person. And of course, we show pictures with our son, who also plays. We do the magalogs. So from various places that we've been written in, we've got the magalogs with the articles in there, just adding credibility and proof to that. One of my favorites is our letters from the bullpen. So everybody talks about testimonials. The way we did this is we actually had 2 versions. So we send 2 different ones out, letters from the bullpen 1, letters from the bullpen 2, and it's just testimonials. It's all hundreds of testimonials from people to add proof to that.
Let me stop you for a second and ask. So you had 2 versions of the letters from the bullpen. Are you using both those versions now?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah. is there any difference inside of it versus compared to just what the cover is?
Just more people.
Okay.
Like, so there are just, once we got this one we had first, and then we got so many more testimonials, I'm like, we need to create another one. So then we had a second one that we included in there. So they're
piling on.
Yeah. Yeah. So one goes in the first one and one goes in like the second mailing on that. Another neat little thing is, because I talked about arm health and worried about injury, one thing that we did is this sales letter says, is there a painful fracture or torn my husband jokes about that, UCL in your son's future? Discover how to avoid one of baseball's. And then we send an actual x-ray. So it goes along with that, and it shows this is what a fractured UCL looks like I said, actually, it's the fractured bone, not the UCL, but the fracture. We show that in there and what it looks like for an athlete. So that's another one. And then one final piece, Ron had done an interview several years ago, and we put a transcription of that interview in there along with the QR code to actually listen to the interview. So if they want to hear him talking some more, they have an idea of what that is. And then each time all of those is mailed in one of the urgent letters so that they know that the package is coming there. And then last but not least, Ron, the cream point on that is there's the DVD package that goes in the mailing number one. This is the foundational piece of all of that with the sales letter.
Yeah. So I'll take a second here to point out, and I appreciate that. The video sales letter that we built for them was, I don't know how long ago it was. It was a long time ago. And the interesting thing I want to point out about it, that is something that Jill has said. There's two things I want to point out. Number one, everybody that's on this recognizes all of the stuff that she's shown. And I would venture to say that the competitors, those 5 other players, will look at this and go, that's not us. That won't work for us. That's unprofessional. Sending them an X-ray. I mean, we've all seen that, but it doesn't work for me. And so that's one point. The second point is that she's already mentioned it several times. One with the sales letter is that the sales letter goes out 3 times, and it's basically the same sales letter with a little bit of graphic punch up and so forth, which leads me then to the video sales letter. So the video piece, when we originally produced that video piece, I would venture to say that the version that we created originally, and I'm going to take a guess and say that was 10 years ago, and the version that people get now is exactly the same. It's the same video sales letter. So we produced it once. The only thing that's changed, and this is the point, the only thing that's changed is that's the original generation of the video. Okay, that's what it was the first generation. Oh, here's this version came out in January of 2017. So there was the second generation of it. The third generation of it. Now, here's where you're going to see it. Yeah. The fourth generation, all that's changed is the number. The fifth, the sixth, and the thing that I'll point out is as we've evolved this thing, it started out, the first generation, as a DVD. As it got to now, whatever generation this was, it's now a DVD with a thumb drive, as well as an insert card that is, here's what you've got here. Here's how you can do it. And I think there's 3 ways of accessing the video on here with QR codes and so forth. And for the last 3 years, maybe, our conversation has been about, well, DVDs are dead. Nobody's got DVDs. And the conversation that Ron and Jill have continually had is, we don't want to get rid of the package. We really don't want to get rid of the DVDs, but people are telling us they're not playing DVDs. So here is the latest generation. And Jill, this one doesn't have the updated number on it, which you have. But here's the latest version of it. It looks exactly the same, but all it's going to have in it now is a thumb drive. Here is a thumb drive, but we've kept the DVD. I mean, all we've changed in this, folks, is the packaging. Nothing's changed because it works. So forgive me for going out on a limb there, but the point being is, I'm victim of this. I know Jill's been victim of this. And I think everybody watching will be victim of this, is that we think we have to create new stuff in order to have a greater impact. And the thing that I learned from Dan, you learned from Dan, is that it's not a requiring of new stuff. It's a requiring of just continually communicating.
Yeah. And figuring out the various ways to use the current stuff. Right. That's just, I like trying to remind myself constantly of, oh, where else can I use this? How else can I use this? And I want to back up on one of your comments about the competition saying, yeah, you know, this isn't for us. We wouldn't do something like that. Here's the bigger one. And the bigger one is they won't spend the money to do it. Like when they, if not all, 90% of the people I can think about in that group, they're doing everything via social media and email. That's it. And it's like, good, keep doing that. You know, they have no idea. Now, at $500, if you're charging $500, yeah, it gets hard to do this and everything else that I'm going to show you as part of the event itself. But it's why we can.
Yeah.
all the marketing, and then what we do with the rest of the experience. But to your point, the DVD, I just smile when I think about when you want to talk about evergreen. It has been an evergreen product, and it is completely different than anyone in our industry does. Completely different.
And I included a link for people to watch that video for before this. And if you haven't watched it, you have to go watch it, because you'll see all of the major components that are included in there. And to forewarn people, and Jill and Ron, to their credit, this didn't bother them, but the video is 38 minutes long.
Yeah.
And that's only one. We have a second one that is for follow-up, which is about 32 minutes and so forth, which is really all of the people talking about it. So let's move on, because you've got a lot of stuff to show. Before we do that, let me ask you this in regards to the people doing everything online in social media and that, because they're charging $500. So you're charging $29.95 for a 3-day camp. The question that should be asked, that I'm going to ask, is, okay, so you're getting $29.95, but what is that rancher worth to you, really, in the long run?
Yeah. So because one of the things we do, one of our back end on this is our what we call our DuraThrow remote training. So that is basically them to continue to get training when they go home. It's a subscription plan or membership plan, however you want to talk about that. So that's a big thing for us, the back end there. Then getting them to return either to another camp or to an alumni event. Or one thing I did not even mention is our summer program, our extended stay, long-term summer program, where they can stay from anywhere from 2 to 11 weeks. But our boot camps really are the feeder to that summer program. So they are worth, well, like a 3 times that number, if, when you look at it. And so it's
not counting the value on referrals from them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So that's an important thing. I wanted to make sure that we stress as she gets into this other stuff. And think about what she just said, an 11-week program. And you think they're coming to Montgomery, Texas and spending 11 weeks. And it's not just the pitcher. It's mom and dad are coming and they're making a doggone summer vacation out of it. And if you think about it, 11 weeks is what? It's almost 3 months.
Yeah. All summer.
Yeah, the whole summer. And so what she's going to now show you is what drives all of that to happen. So,
yes. All right. So we now have the person has signed up and registered for the 3-day weekend event. The first thing that is going to happen, in addition to the behind the scenes online automatic confirmation, things like that, when they get their confirmation, a couple things happen. There is a link on there to sign up for a pre-camp coaching call. This is another thing no one does. So it's a pre-camp coaching call. They get a link that they can now sign up for a time, get on a phone call with one of our coaches prior to the event, so that we can learn a little bit more about the athlete, but as important, they can learn a little bit more about what the weekend's going to be like and just get a more comforting feel before they come in. It also is like that reinforcement. Ooh, I just dropped $3,000. Now these people talk to me. They care about me. This is important. This is more than just the money that we're spending on them. So they do the pre-camp coaching call. The other thing that happens is they get mailed beforehand a copy of Ron's book. So it is an autographed copy. He signs it, his Pitching with Confidence book. This book is, as we call it, a parent's guide to giving your elite pitcher an edge. So now it reinforces that he is in authority. They are coming to a place that is very few of these other places guys have a book. There are a couple, but very few of them have a book. They're getting this. And what's neat about it is it answers what the book really is that some of the most common questions that we received over the years, and Ron addresses those and answers those in a very practical, easy to understand way. So many people in our industry try to sound like the smartest guy in the room, and they use terminology that just make parents and kids' eyes roll back in their head. Very, very practical way. So now they get this gift. It's got value in it because it's things they want to know about. So like college scholarships, long toss, weighted ball programs, just all variety of topics that they get that beforehand. So those are 2 big steps that we do before they ever show up. Then once they arrive, when they pull into our driveway, we have a greeter that's at the front gate, but most importantly, they will pull into the parking lot, and there will be a sign in a stall for them that says, welcome so-and-so and family to the Texas Baseball Ranch. And then I'm going to real quick, Ron, I'm going to go ahead and share because I do want you to be able to see what that looks like. So I'm going to go on my share screen and just show everybody real quick what that looks like. So when they pull in, that's what it's going to look like. So you got the big red barn, which is the centerpiece of everything, but right there is their parking spot. And time again, athletes are in front of those signs immediately taking pictures of them in front of their sign. And then they get to take those home. They just pull right off that rack and that sign goes to them. And then if you don't think it's a big deal, I will tell you, we had a guy that's a returner like 3 or 4 times. And he says in their workout room, in their garage, every single one of those signs is mounted on the wall from each of the visits that while they were there. So that's a piece that they get when they walk in. As they go through our check-in process, and I'm going to see how I'm going to do this. I got all my stuff pulled out here. As they go through the check-in process, they are going to receive a ranch backpack. So this is a logo backpack. This has all the equipment in there that we use. So one of the things that we tell them is that you're paying your $29.95, but when you go home, you're also going to have the key equipment you need to continue. So you don't have to spend more money now to make this like, oh man, I just spent all this money. Now I got to go buy more stuff to do it. So we include the little equipment package for them in there, and it's got their balls and socks and club and those type of things, things related to us. So that's a big step. Now there's other things they can purchase, but these are the things Ron says, these are all you need to go home and work this process of this plan that we put together. So they get we call it their swag bag. And you also know when something's a hit, when the mom calls and says, oh, Johnny's backpack wore out this past year. It's his favorite. Can we buy another one? It's a good sign. Then they get their ranch t-shirt for that. And then they also get a ranch logoed pair of socks, and they get a ranch water jug. So all of those items that they get upon check-in. The parents also get some things. So we got to remember the parents are the ones that are paying. So we do a parents bag. We chose a clear bag because in sports, a lot of times now in stadiums, you have to have a clear bag to enter so that security can look through your bag. So this way, if they need a clear bag for a stadium, they're taking the logoed Baseball Ranch bag to the stadium. Also in there, the parents both parent and athlete get a full notebook for the weekend. This is all the things that we go over, all their evaluations, ultimately their plan is all included in there. And then the parents also get a couple of our special reports that we have written. One being velocity is formulaic. The other is the case against weighted balls with a question mark. They're for them, but we also say, hey, if you want more, let us know. You want to share them with friends? We're happy to give you some extras of those. And then we give the parents a Tervis jug. If they happen to be a returner, they would get another bag, but this time we give them the upgraded Tervis. So we're keeping track of the people that return and giving them some additional things. So that is all at the event. Those are all the things that they get when they show up on the doorstep. But it's not over. So I don't know if you want to talk about those at all or just keep rolling because we can.
Well, I want to interject something that you have taken. So we're not going to talk at all about what happens at the camp with the actual pitcher, right, the rancher, the child, and that. But one of the things I do want to point out is that if somebody's really doing their due diligence about the Texas Baseball Ranch or a competitor, one of the things that they will find out, and correct me if I speak out incorrectly on this, Jill, but one of the things that they will find is the Texas Baseball Ranch is not a technology-heavy facility, whereas a lot of the competitors are technology heavy. And what I mean by that is that they've got computer modeling programs and they've got video cameras and so forth. Now, that's not to say that the Texas Baseball Ranch doesn't have those things. However, they do. The difference, though, is that as you're seeing, the focus is not on that. The focus is on the experience, and on the deliverable, which is all talked about on the front end. Because, and if anybody's watched the video, we actually address the elephants in the room of what people would view as being not a negative, but not a positive about the ranch. And we turn it around as to why it's a positive. And it is all congruent to what it is that they're investing in. So I just wanted to point that out with regard to, as far as the sales pitch, the sales presentation, in what they're getting. And if they do the due diligence, which many of them aren't, they'll find out, and we address it in the video as well as other things in the sales letters.
Right. It's the emphasis. It's where the emphasis is placed for sure. Like, most people, the technology is, I mean, it's like everything. And like, so then sometimes people do think, oh, well, maybe the ranch doesn't that. You nailed it. We have those pieces. They're just not the emphasis of everything that we do.
Right.
Yeah. So we get through the weekend. Now, obviously, we have to do a good job, and we do a good job. We are exceptional at the training side of this. And the numbers speak to that, right? That we're exceptional at the training side and the success that we've had in that. But once they leave, so immediately upon the next day, in the mail goes a ranch thank you card. So we have a card, and it's got the big red barn again with the center of that on there. So they get a thank you card from one of the coaches. A week later, they are going to receive a box with inside is wrapped up is a signed baseball. So it's actually Baseball Ranch logoed, and all the coaches have signed the baseball. So they get that. And included with that, then we have a neat little letter for them that's kind of fun. It's got all the ranch staff just kind of in a fun pose as they leave. And it's from Ron, just saying, hey, how much we enjoyed him here. Here's a little gift for you, signed with all the coaches. Then 1 week later after that, during the camp, there's certain times that I'm taking pictures. So I'm part of the check-in process. I get a picture with the player with their parent. Interesting that you said then moms are coming. Another thing we're seeing is a lot of grandparents are now coming, because in many cases, the grandparents are footing the bill. Like we're seeing more and more where the grandparents are helping out with that. And so whoever they were there with, I get a picture with the athlete at the beginning. And then throughout the weekend, I'm taking some other pictures, but one specific time, every athlete is working with Ron, and I take a picture of them when they're working with him. Now, the third week, we're sending out this little photo booklet. So this is a foldable photo booklet. I just put photos in here because I don't actually have all of them a bit set, but normally there would be the player with their parent or grandparent or whoever there, and then their picture with Ron, or if they break a personal velocity record, we'll put that in there. So then they have this photo booklet to keep. And in addition with that, then we send a cover letter, and it's Ron and I about, how neat we enjoy getting gifts, and wanted to make sure that they got that gift. So then that also goes out, and all that, then that is also at right about the time when it rolls into the paid membership for their Durathrow. So they get the first 30 days free with that. That's part of their camp experience, is 30 days of Durathrow. So they get the private coaching we say it turns our 3-day camp into a 30-day camp, because they're actually getting to work. And about the time that last one shows, it is about ready to roll into the automatic paid membership.
Yeah. So it's again to point out, everything that she showed is something that, we've learned from Kennedy, and Kennedy said about Disney is, look at how much stuff these people have in their home that says Texas Baseball Ranch. So anywhere in their home, they turn around and look, they're seeing Texas Baseball Ranch, and they have found a way, Jill and Ron have found a way to create the shrine that, we all have. I've got it back here somewhere, the bobblehead, the Kennedy bobblehead, which we probably all have. They've created a way for people to create a shrine. As she said, they've got the signs in their house. And look at all of the stuff that they send out after the fact, which I think is beautiful. Because after we're done, we want to pitch them into Durathrow, but you're not doing that until 3 weeks, which is, they've got the thing for 30 days. Now they're going to be dropping out of it, and so on and so forth. I'm curious, if you haven't gotten to it, if you plan on getting to it, at what point in the process are you talking about or nurturing them for the return? Because that's a big thing.
So it's interesting you say that because it's not intentional enough probably for us. Although at the very end of every boot, so here's when it starts. It starts at the end of the boot camp itself. So when we're doing our closing and we're saying, hey, thanks to all of our coaches for all their help, I do the final close, which is a thank you to the parents for entrusting their athletes with us and sacrificing their time and paying for that. And then telling the athletes, there are a lot of other people that would like to be sitting here in your seats, but for whatever reason, they're not able to. So make sure you take the time to thank the person or persons responsible for you being able to be here. I said, now, as a result of having come to this Elite Pitchers Boot Camp, you now are considered a ranch returner or an alumni, which gives you a couple of extra special benefits. One, you get to return to a future boot camp, and I didn't mention this in the pricing at the beginning. You get to return to a future boot camp as $1,000 off savings. So we actually give returners $19.95. We want them back. You are also now eligible for our Alumni Advanced Camp, which we host once a year in January. It's a one-time only event. And in that, we bring in a couple of guest instructors. And so you will be receiving the information for that camp when it comes out. So that's the first pitch about returning. After that, they are on every list for all future camps and all alumni camps. And I also mentioned they now can come to the summer program, which is usually the next step that most people take in their path with us.
Yeah. I know you enough to know, you say you're not doing it intentionally enough, but I expect that throughout the 3 days, the seed is being planted and there's enough what I refer to as environmental marketing that's there at the ranch this person came back 6 times, and the mother that talks about we bought a house here, it's in the videos, it's in the follow-up. So we're seeding that message. So that conversation doesn't really require you to push it too much other than just open the door, because I would imagine they're probably the first night after the first day, they're in there talking about, hey, I want to come back to this. I know because I've talked to people.
Yes, you see it. Well, and the other way we do it, talk about environmentally, our returners get a different color shirt. So that the shirt at check-in that they got, the returners get a different one. So that's, so for one, it's them, it makes them feel important, but also it's other people go, oh, these people come back. Because the question we get most often is, what's different if we come back?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing they want to know. Why would we come back? And then and then Ron also has times throughout the week, he goes, okay, and where's my returners? All right, so you guys know that we're constantly updating and changing things. And, so he does that as a messaging, because we need to tell people, you have to understand, in 3 days, you're getting a lot of information and you're not going to remember it all, nor do you need to, because right now there's only 1 or 2 things you need to focus on. Next time you come back, it should be a different 1 or 2 things that you need to be focusing on.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else that you've got there to share?
That I think I was able, we do. So, okay, I did have a couple of that I can just show that we do. We give some other little gifts out as going away. These are magnets. I mean, it shows the ranch, bumper stickers. So they're putting those on their laptops and what have you. We also do quarterly our ranch review. So people are getting that even if they're not in membership. So we have our Durathrow monthly newsletter, but that's just something. So that's always also talking about what's next, because that's only going to the people that have done something with us in the past. So I think we covered a lot of it. So if anybody has questions or you want to.
I have a question. So the what do we get different if we come back? I'm curious, is all of the tchotchkes that they get when they first attend, is there different stuff that they're getting when they return, aside from a different colored shirt?
So the parents would get something different. The equipment bag in that has stayed the same. Now we have changed like these bottles and things we have changed over time. So sometimes we'll see a new one, but no, not specifically on the returner. And usually it's about right. They'll get a new set of their connection balls. They'll get a new sock. So it's about time to redo the equipment anyway, or pass it on, like they say, to little brother.
Yeah, and I would venture, and I ask a question because I think that's an obvious question somebody would ask, but I would say that the value of them being a rancher is so high that stuff no longer matters to them. It's not the
No.
stuff where you're inundating them with the stuff up front. But
They
now,
want to know, yeah, they want to know the difference in the training. Like, is everything going to be the same? And immediately you talk about, well, hopefully you're different, so your video analysis should look different, your TrackMan should look different, your movement screen should look different. It's also a great checkup to make sure you are progressing the way that you want to.
yeah. And the thing that you haven't mentioned that we know is happening is that you've created a culture. You've actually created a I don't know what the word, I'm at a loss for the word, but these ranchers are staying, these are lifelong relationships that they're forming and
Hashtag ranch family. Yep.
there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
There
you
you
got
go.
it. It is. There is a culture to it. I mean, I laughed the other day. It's been a little longer, a few years, but a wedding picture of a young man, and 4 out of the 5 groomsmen were guys that were all in the summer program together.
You're making an impact when you're
Yeah.
showing them, when they're showing up. Now the question is, did they wear their ranch socks under the
You know
tux?
what's hilarious? What is also awesome about that? Like, they get those on day 1, and day 2, though. I mean, there's easily a third of the boys are wearing their socks the next day. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty neat.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, great. Let's, if you don't mind, let's open it up to questions. Anybody have a question? Not everybody's got their camera on. So Dan Cricks has a question. I'm going to unmute and then let's see. Forgive me if I don't do this right. There we go. You got to unmute yourself there, Dan. There you go.
Hi, Jill. How are you?
Hi, Dan. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm curious, do you have a specific referral program, if you will, or reward if they uh, talk to somebody else on their team or what have you?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that, because we actually just recently implemented it, and it came, I think, from our last master meeting with Ron and our group in Florida. We do one other thing I didn't point out is that when people first arrive with the parents, they get a sheet from us. I call it a pre-camp questionnaire. And I tell the parents, I say, this is for me. I want to know about your experience, everything leading up to prior to coming through our doorstep, how the process went. And I give them several different questions to answer, including things like, did you request I try to find out, did they request the information package? Yes or no? How did you hear about us? I'm leading to your question. How did you hear about us? If it was from a specific person, do you have their contact information? We'd like to personally thank them. So I try to ask it that way. Then I ask the rest of the questions. Did you request a package? Did you watch the materials? Did you do the coaching call? Did you, I try to know all the things, make sure that my staff and we're doing all the things right. Then from that referral, we go through an outside company that we have logoed merchandise. And I know, Ron, you probably have shared it with your group. And they send out, we pick whatever it is. And for us, the first time we send them brownies. The second time we send them, I think it's popcorn for a movie. But yes, that's how we do a referral. Now, we do not do as much post after that for referrals, but that is where we've started to try to make sure we are being grateful, extremely grateful for the people that are getting sent our way. Other than that, we don't have in place a specific referral program.
Good question.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Let me see if I figure out how to do this. There we go. Anybody else with a question? This is your opportunity. So
while you're waiting on that, I will also say this. This is the power of a mastermind in this sense. The sourcing on almost everything that we've done has come from someone sharing a resource. Whether it's the people that do our printing, whether it was you at the time that when we started our path with doing the DVD products, the manual things that we do. I mean, everything. Darcy gave me some other people that helped me do some things. The newest testimonial booklet, Tim Benson did that from our mastermind group. So that's one comment I would make to people. The other one is, I know you have an advanced group, but I looked at it and I'm like, we started with this. And then we added the second piece, and then we added the third. And I know a lot of times people can get overwhelmed. We weren't giving all these products away when we started. We started with, I think, the backpack. And then we added the equipment later on when Ron said we need to make this valuable. So it's just start somewhere and then add the pieces to it.
Well, the advantage is that, as you mentioned it before, the bar was pretty low in the expectation of the buyer because of what had not been done in the industry. So anything that you did was elevating the expectation and really making you stand out. Because what is it that we learn? Show up differently. How does it go? Show up different and show up differently. And just a little bit added onto it. And this all has progressed over how many years, Jill?
Oh gosh, so we have been at the ranch property since 2006, so 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So, and the other thing too, I might point out is because there's always that argument in marketing of direct response versus brand, is that you started out direct response and the brand has developed. So again, the brand has become a residual effect of the direct response.
Correct.
And language, we didn't get into it at all here, but you heard her say it, and it's just in her language naturally. But the things that she said in regards to referencing who the people are and the ranchers, and I mean they've got the language. So to Jill and Ron's credit is that they've gotten in masterminds, they've listened, they've asked smart questions, and I wouldn't try to do any of this stuff without a mastermind. So
Exactly.
Any other questions to the group? Because I'm keeping an eye on the clock here to respect everybody's time. So any questions from anybody in the group attending? Going once? Going twice? Oh, Dan's got another question. Hold on a second. And you have to unmute again, Dan.
Since nobody else is asking, I'll throw one more out there. Do you track about what percentage of your campers come with someone else? So a teammate, a sibling, where they attend together?
So we don't specifically track it, but I can follow it enough to give you the subjective on it. So the majority are by themselves. We will probably have now. The referrals from those will be a teammate, heard from a teammate, heard from a, whatever. We also do like a sibling discount. So we will get siblings. We have 12 events a year, 12 of the 3-day Elite Pitchers boot camps. And I would say at 3 of those, we could have siblings. So that's not a large amount. And of the teammates, probably at 2 to 3 events per year, we'll have 2 to 3 to 4 teammates at one time. Most of it, 95%, is going to be the first-time individual on their own.
About how many attend your camps?
Great question. I didn't even bring that up. Our camps sell out at 32 athletes. So we do 32 per camp, and we will routinely sell those out, majority of those. So we run, first one in the spring is right after Memorial Day. So we do 1 in May, 2 in June, 2 in July, and then 1 the rest of the year, August through February. The last one we don't do any camps when they're all in season, which is typically February through May. But 32 is the athlete number for each camp.
Let me get Greg in here. Greg's got a question, and then I'll follow up with mine. You have to unmute yourself, Greg. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, Jill, first of all, it was very good. Thank you. I'm just, the discount, the way you do it at the end, it seems just counterintuitive. Like, it seems to me that I would discount somebody to get them there. And then not give them the reward. So can you just explain that thinking a little bit?
I will. So I know it does that because we've had that conversation several times on it. But we also, so when it happened, it also was kind of tied into around COVID time. Okay, a couple things happened. One, we owned the market for years. And this discussion I was having with Ron, as more and more people started coming in, we at one time would do 50 kids at a camp and then drop to 32. Now the camp is way better, and we're charging more, so the dollars on that work out fine. But we were finding then we kind of ran into some time periods when COVID hit, but we were open. And so there were things we wanted to do to get people in. And one of our things was for returners was saying, hey, let's give these people an opportunity. Let's make this, they want to come to Texas. They want to train right now. And so let's hit our people that have been here. Like, let's not make other people try to make a decision. Let's really hit those people and let's give them an opportunity. And at the time we just go, let's take $1,000 off and offer it to them and see what happens. Well, we got a really good response from it. And we said, all right, it was just purely a gut feeling of like, we're just going to stick with this. We're going to allow those people, we get enough other people paying the full price. We want to reward these people. And you should see everybody's face when we say at that time, hey, and the great news is you get $1,000 off, and you see the kids look at their parents, you see the parents smile at it. And since we get 3 to 5 returners each camp, to us, it's just, it just has worked really well. And it's a benefit we feel like we can give them if they stay in our Throw program, which a lot of our returners are those type of people. They're people that are a buyer, and they can't keep buying from us on things. We just figure we make that dollar in the long run. So I don't have a great reason to tell you that. It's just when we decided to do it, it seemed to work well and gave everybody the good feel about it. And we just haven't changed it.
So, Ron, can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
So the COVID thing, that makes sense because people aren't coming. So now do the returning people who are getting the steep discount, 33% off, right? Is that to fill it up so you hit the 32? Like, in other words, you wouldn't have had that many in it, or is that excluding full price people and pushing them to a later date?
So as of right now, it is helping to fill and stay at that 32 max. See, it would probably be something we would consider down the road if we were where it was 6 or 7 years ago, where we would have a wait list of 5, 7 people. That's not the case right now. So it does help to make sure that it's guaranteed that we get those to a full.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you attribute so you had 5, 7, 8 on a waiting list then, and you don't now? What do you attribute that to?
Just the number of people doing something similar, just the significant number of people doing baseball training, which is another reason why we just raised the price on kept our stuff higher. We're like, well, if our numbers are way low, we're just going to have the higher dollar mark. Now, that being said, I think it's going to be very interesting to watch over the next year, because we're starting to see people making comments in our Throw specifically of, the budget's just tight now and so on. So I don't know if we're going to see economy come into that, but we've usually been able to beat that. Like when other people have, can't get lessons in the door, people are still sending their kids to our high-end event.
Yeah. Answer your question, Greg?
Yes. Thank you. That helps a lot.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, sir. Sean, did you raise your hand at one point in time? Did I see you wanted to ask a question?
No, I just came on camera.
Oh,
just
okay.
to say thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions? Because I had hold your thought, Dan. Crix has another question. Dustin has it. So let me get to that. And I had a senior moment and completely lost my question. So we're going to go to Dustin. Hold your thought, Dan. We're going to go to Dustin McGroarty, who is not far from you, Jill, in Texas.
Oh, nice.
Hey, Joe. Thank you so much for doing
where's
this.
home?
Good stuff. My question is about like your top of funnel leads. Are they coming in like through an ongoing lead gen campaign, or is it mostly like organic?
It's still, I wish I could give you a great lead gen on this. We have, as long as we've been doing it, it is hard to find these leads, but we are doing organic. Second thing that we have done is we have and then I don't know how familiar you are in the sporting side of things, but there is a group that Ron writes articles for, and those We get a lot of I shouldn't say a lot, we get a percent of leads that come in through that, from him writing articles with our tag information at the bottom. Through them, we're also able to send out some quarterly emails on things. They have the largest database of our prospective clients. And so working through them has helped, but still the highest percent, when I ask people, how did you hear about it? It is still a high majority of found you online. So organically. And if anybody can ever help me figure out a way to do it, I would be thrilled, because that's not necessarily the ideal way, but it is how we are getting them.
Well,
Okay.
I will add, so if there's anybody that can fix it, add in, jump into it. I will add, forgive me, Dustin, I'm going to share something here. So Dustin's father is in the online space in Backyard Grower. I'm sure you remember hearing Mike McGroarty. This is Dustin, Mike's son. But, and Dustin is really, I would say it even if Mike were on the call, Dustin's really the brains behind driving all the online stuff. But the interesting thing is that I heard consistently when Mike was in mastermind meetings with us, as well with Kennedy, is that everybody wanted to drive him to doing direct mail and doing other stuff and so forth. And Mike instinctively fought that, never tested it, because all his stuff came from online. So my point being is there may not be a way to fix it. It may
Sure,
just be what it is. I mean, would you agree with that, Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You really have to be able to, like you said, identify who that ideal prospect is. And if you just, can't really figure it out, it's hard to target them. It is very hard to target somebody like that. So
yeah, and I will add this, because we're about to do some testing on it. We are seeing one theme coming through, and it is private school kids. And which makes sense. The parents are paying for private school. They have the funds. They're looking for other sources. So those type of lists now would be easier to find. So we're going to start marketing to the private school coaches who know that their parents of those athletes spend more. And I think that might also be a way that we will increase some lead generation.
another option is actually like taking your database of customers and then like uploading that for like a kind of a customer match type thing.
Right.
Like a lookalike audience or something like that.
Yeah, that would be really good for us to do at this point. We haven't analyzed it in a while.
Good. Thank you. All right. Hold your thought for just a second, Dan, because I remember my question. So you mentioned before about all of the other players in it. How much are you seeing crossover for ranchers who tried the others and then came?
Yes, you'll get the person that says, I went to such and such. Right.
Are you seeing much of it?
Not as much as people that just did like worked with a local instructor, or we get a high percent of, they say, our high school coach told us we needed to come. So that's a referral base that we didn't really talk about, is the coaches that say you should do this. I would say of those that have tried something else, what's also interesting is the people we've had that have been to us, tried something else, and come back. Like we've got that group that also has happened, right?
Yeah.
The curiosity shoppers, they want to know the next shiny thing, but then come back up. That wasn't at all like what this was.
Yeah. So don't anybody discount the importance of influencers, because Kennedy just wrote about it in the Breaking All the Rules book in reference to me, is that's one of the things that I've done. I've leveraged my relationship with Kennedy for so long, and there's a lot of value, and they're getting it as well. She just said it. My coach said, I have to come. And I know in the recordings we've gotten of parents, that's a resounding thing we heard over and over. Somebody that they believed and trusted said, you've got to do this. And they didn't do it blindly, but they did it. And that, right. And Ron's writing in these articles and these places where influencers are at. And it's in essence a pseudo endorsement by
Right.
just being there.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Cool. All right, Dan.
Hey, I avoid those senior moments by writing mine down.
I did, but I just didn't interpret the note properly.
So two things real quick. You mentioned going after the private school kids. When you test that, a recommendation, I did a lot of coaching, nothing like you
Yeah.
guys, but my grandson just came out of a private school. Okay. So when you do this, you're testing, I would go the higher end,
Yeah.
test it there. That's the low hanging fruit because most of those kids are in those schools if they're playing that sport for that edge,
Yeah.
for that opportunity. And the parents are already used to spending a ton of money on this stuff. So, for example, my grandson played lacrosse and the travel, the expense, the whole 9 yards. And you look around the parking lots when we would go to these things, all the vehicles there were 70, 80, $100,000 vehicles that they're used to taking out. So when you test, go for the low hanging fruit. Okay.
Great
And
idea.
the other quick question is all the stuff you give, do you give a baseball cap at any point?
No, we sell those in the merchandise shop.
So here's my thought with that. Those kids wear those everywhere. Do most of them buy one?
Yes, they either that or another shirt. So they actually do. The hats are probably our top selling thing for that reason. Like I remember my son growing up, every time we went to a showcase or an event or whatever, he bought the hat, right? I bought the hat. But yes, I mean, potentially that could be something we add in, but it is one thing we sell. Like there's not a lot of things we sell extra, and that is one thing we sell extra.
Well, just one of the things I was thinking about, if that was something you gave as a prelim, then people are asking about it. And probably, like you said, with the socks, by the time they get there, they're ready for a new one. Chances are they're still going to buy one.
Good idea.
So just a thought.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you, sir. So, all right. Let's wrap this up. Jill, again, thank you very much for your time, for how much you've shared and so forth.
Thanks for tuning in. I'm sure you got a lot from this episode. Join Ron and his next guest here on the One Thing Podcast.